and welcome back to another episode of Taking Control of Cancer, the podcast brought to you by the North East London Cancer Alliance. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the National Cancer Patient Experience Survey, which is a really important national initiative giving people living with and beyond cancer the opportunity to share their views on the care they receive. And it's an NHS England initiative. It's conducted annually. It's sent to patients who've received cancer treatment as an inpatient or outpatient during April, May and June of the year. And it talks about every stage of the cancer journey, from diagnosis, tests and treatment through to support aftercare. That feedback goes a long way to determining how the NHS shape their care for cancer patients. It plays a really vital role. So we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about the patient experience. I'm also joined by Sarah Koya, who is the Patient Experience and Engagement Lead at the North East London Cancer Alliance. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Steve.
And as I said, we've got two patients with us. Hello, Samina, and hello, Dawn.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Hi. Really good to have you all along. Sarah, let's kick off with you. For listeners who might not have heard of the survey, just explain what the survey is, what kind of stuff it asks, and also what part it plays in, as I said in the intro, shaping a lot of how patient care changes.
Yeah, sure. So the National Cancer Patient Experience Survey has been carried out annually since the year 2010. Generally, the data is used to insight and form and transform the services. So we look at how patients are experiencing the services, and then we use the data to improve the services that we're providing to the patients. The survey, so 2024 survey locally in North East London was sent out to 3,087 patients, but we only received responses from 1,164 patients. So that brought us to about 38% response rate. So generally in North East London, we've got quite a low response rate. The average response rate is 55. The survey allows patients to give feedback based on their experiences, and we so it's a nationally conducted services. It's NHS England has contracted PICA, a company called PICA, to facilitate the survey process. Once the surveys, the data has been collated by PICA, then it's then disseminated to the different local trusts and services and ICB. And then what we then do as an ICB is we work with trusts to then look at the results for each different individual hospital sites, looking at how a patient experiences the responses that we're getting, and then using that to inform the service improvements that is implemented across the patch.
And what sort of thing does it ask? Is it very kind of simple questions, or does it really go? Are they quite open-ended questions, or tell us about your experience, or like multiple choice? What kind of thing are we talking?
No, it's a combination of both. So it's quite a lengthy survey. The survey asks a total of 59 questions.
Wow.
It used to be 62, but again, based off of feedback that was received in the previous years, they've cut it down to 59 because patients have complained that it's quite a lengthy survey.
Those extra 3 questions are the killer, aren't they?
Yes, they shifted a couple of questions off of there. So it's 59 questions, and it goes through right from the minute that you were seen by your GP, how the treatment of care from that moment on up until whilst you so right through to diagnosis, treatment, and then after you were discharged. So it asks questions of for example, some of the questions are around how was the news broken to you, and then it's a multi-question. So it asks if it's what's the word when it's five
multiple choice. You're right.
So it's that kind of question, and then there's a box at the end of it where you can put free text and write a whole thing. So with the free text data that we get back, it's really useful. The trusts find them very useful because it's a bit more detailed, and patients can write through the whole thing. And I think some of the data we received back with the free text in the past have actually gone as far as saying Dr. X, Y, and Z went above and beyond with this particular aspect of my treatment. Please extend. So it's quite detailed, and at the same time, you don't have to be as detailed if you don't want to be. So you get the multiple questions that everybody gets asked, and then there's the bit at the end to have the extra free text.
That's important, actually, isn't it? Because I bet, I think your sort of first thought when you're asked to give feedback. It's almost asking like what went wrong, isn't it? But I imagine there's some really good positive things in there as well.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I must say the survey is anonymous. It only asks for details. I think the only identifiable details is age and ethnic group. And then there's the disability questions, but there's nothing no NHS number is asked, nothing. So it's anonymous. It doesn't get traced back to you. So, and that's why we encourage patients to complete it as much as possible, as detailed as possible. And I think that also allows the people that have completed it to be as open and honest as possible. So it's not always good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's,
Yeah.
I think one of
that's
the
important.
most...
Yeah, that's important as well, though, isn't it? That's too important to have honest feedback, and I think being anonymous is really important. Do we know why perhaps your uptake is so low in North East London, but actually 55% nationally doesn't sound very high either.
Yeah, I think 55 is not very high nationally, but then again, I think in North East London, I think it's something to do with the demographics and the population of North East London. Reason being because all the other London alliances sit quite low with regards to response rates.
Yes, we've talked a million times, haven't we, about the diversity and the the huge diversity in every possible way in North East London. I wonder if that's how much is that?
I think the population definitely has something to do with it.
Yeah.
As we know, North East London is quite diverse. I think we are the most diverse patch across England. And as I said earlier on, when we compared our data, because part of my one of the things I did was actually reached out to, I think it was Merseyside or Cheshire, one of them, don't quote me, had the highest response rate, and I reached out to them, and their demographics was very, very different compared to demographics.
Well, if it was Cheshire, that's where I'm talking to you from right now, and I can tell you there probably isn't a part of the country more different to North East London than Cheshire.
Yeah, they sit right at the top. It's green. Everything's green up there.
Well, it's absolutely tipping it down outside at the moment, so not all great. Sarah, let's pause that for 1 second. Let's bring in Samina and Dawn. Do you guys want to, before we talk about the survey, before we talk about the importance of patient feedback, just tell us your story, Samina first, if you would.
Yeah, no, happily. So I'm Samina Hussain. I was diagnosed with breast cancer about 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago, and I was 45 years old. But literally, my world fell apart. I mean, it wasn't what I expected. I'd never done any sort of self-examination. I wasn't breast aware. And I think what happens when you get a diagnosis, English is my first language. And I often used to think how difficult this journey would have been to navigate for my mother, where English isn't her first language. Even though English was my first language, with chemo brain, with being overwhelmed, being stressed by the whole diagnosis and treatment, I actually wasn't functioning very well at all. I mean, my daughter would have to accompany me, or my husband, just so that I had a note taker at my meeting. So I think also, coupled with that, sadly, is that from the South Asian community, it's very taboo. So people didn't talk about cancer. People didn't share their journeys and stories. And I found it very overwhelming, thinking, often I say to people, I was the only brown woman in chemo. And I thought, well, maybe, Asian women, Pakistani Muslim women don't get cancer or breast cancer. But actually what I realized was, talking to the staff and the team, is, they do, but they present later and their outcomes are worse.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, gosh, we've got a pandemic going on here, that people feel that the most appropriate right thing to do is to be silenced. I don't want people to be silenced. And this is where, when I shared on Facebook some pictures, and I got a lot of responses, and people would say, especially women, thank you for sharing your pictures, your journey. That was my coping strategy.
Yeah.
And they said that their mother died from breast cancer and they were forbidden to speak about it. That for me was the knife of, wow, this is pretty horrendous, really, what people are emotional well-being of individuals and carers and loved ones are feeling around as a community around breast cancer. And that's when I embarked on, once I was a bit better and stronger, to set up the charity Cocoon Through Cancer. Because Cocoon means peace and tranquility. And, you know, again, if you don't have that network of support and you don't have that peace, you can't step forward in the healing journey. And if you're not comfortable or safe to talk about your emotional well-being, your diagnosis, your treatment, then how are you going to educate and give other people permission to heal? And I think that's what happened in that process. You know, I allowed people, by sharing my story, to find their voice and be confident that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about this stuff because somebody else out there is going through it.
And do you think that that sort of taboo that you talked about in the South Asian community, do you think that extends to giving the feedback? Does that extend to the survey that we're talking about now, that they don't, you know, even if you have been through it, you probably want to just park it and just move on. You don't want to talk about it ever again. You don't want to give the feedback.
Yeah, I think often, I get told I want to forget about that part of my journey and get back to normal life. Well, what's normal after cancer? I mean, you know, nothing's normal after cancer. My world has changed completely. I'm not the woman I was before cancer. So I think the taboo's impact and feedback is associated to that. But also it's making peace with your story, making peace with your journey to be able to articulate feedback. And often people think, oh, it's not for me. They're not asking me to fill in that survey. It's not about me, because they've already blocked out their journey and they've moved on, and they don't want people to know. So I think it's about, how do we present what is it that we're asking? I don't know, Sarah, what do you think? Does that sort of resonate with the work?
I 100% agree. I think just to give context, so we get a response rate of 70% from patients from white and other ethnic backgrounds. It's 10% from Black and African Caribbean backgrounds, and then it's 11 from Asian and others, South Asian ethnic groups. And again, you can see that it's the response rate, considering that North East London is a very diverse population. We have such a low response rates from the majority of our population. And I personally feel like a lot of it is to do with culture. I mean, from the African and Caribbean community, it's very similar. We don't talk about cancer, we don't discuss it. And if you're lucky enough, this is how we see it. If you're lucky enough to have escaped cancer, you don't want to go back, you don't want to discuss it. So usually it's, oh, I don't ever want to revisit it or talk about it again. But yeah, I think that definitely impacts people wanting to come forward. And then there's also the mistrust element as well, where people feel, why should I share my story, or why should I talk, or why should I, share my experience? And some of these patients might still be receiving treatments, and that's why I had to highlight that it's anonymous, because some people might think, oh, if I complete it, it might impact or affect the care that I continue to receive. So yeah, definitely, I think, I agree with Samina on that. Yeah.
But it's hard because if it's I'll come to you, Dawn, in a second. But it's quite self-fulfilling, isn't it? Because if these communities don't fill in the survey, then the service will continue to be not for them.
Yeah, 100%. That's why it's so important that we hear from, because otherwise, because this is the NHS organizers organization works on an evidence-based practice, right? So if we keep hearing from patients from the same ethnic group, the services will be tailored to that ethnic group rather than the majority of the population, if that makes sense. So if the percentage, if we're hearing from 70% of white patients and they're saying, this is where they need support, this is how they feel like the support should be, of course we're going to tailor the service to support the majority of the people we're hearing from. And that's why it's quite important to keep encouraging everyone to complete the service.
But we also have to understand that literacy barriers being able to use technology, be able to articulate, as well as the taboos. It's also about skill set that we're working with individuals, different communities, different languages, different dialect even. So it's not just about give them an interpreter. If I told you that, for breast, there isn't a Punjabi word or Urdu word for breast. So how do you then, if you don't have that in your mother tongue language, how can you then put that down in any survey? So I think, yes, 70% white community are completing the surveys and the services are being designed, but that is creating an inequality because you're not actually tailoring the survey to try and understand the needs of those from a diverse community. So poverty is quite prevalent within, minority ethnic communities that they may have finished their cancer treatment and have had to just roll up their sleeves and get back into employment because they probably weren't paid while they were missing work. They've had to pay out for transport and appointments. I mean, it's about £32, I think it is, they say, to do one hospital visit. So I think, if you're on low income, if you're experiencing hardship and language barriers and technology barriers, all of these things push you for this survey to be at the bottom of the list. And I think, we've got to appreciate that, yes, there is a government survey. And I think this is a part of what this work is doing is hearing these seldom voices. But, we're not, often people say hard to reach. Black and minority ethnic communities are not hard to reach. We're sitting here. What hasn't happened as a system is we haven't been able to adapt and think about different ways of interacting to try and extrapolate what is it that is the barrier? What is it that's stopping them? Is it confidence? Is it technology? Is it language? Is it just I find this I'm just going to acknowledge it and call it out that I find this really hard to talk about. And I think it's giving people that space to say, yeah, this is difficult, but look at the benefits by you sharing. And I'm sure Dawn's got, similar stories.
Let's explore Dawn's story now. Dawn, tell us what's your experience and where are you now with your cancer story?
Well, similar to Samina, I am now 10 years in remission. But at the time I was 39 and diagnosed with bowel cancer. But I was initially misdiagnosed because they're not looking for that type of cancer in people of my age. So the amount of times that I went to A&E, I cannot tell you, but I was sent home with Buscopan and Cocodamol and basically told it's IBS, you'll be fine, take these tablets. If it continues, go see your GP. Thankfully, my GP was an Asian woman who actually listened to me and put me through the 2-week kind of limit that they do for cancer testing because I had all the symptoms. Unfortunately, I went for a scan and was waiting for the results and waited and waited and waited and didn't get them back, hence more trips to A&E. I ended up kind of feeling like I was a drug chaser, like I was trying to, like I wasn't believed. And it actually ended with me collapsing at home and my husband calling an ambulance for me to be taken to the hospital. And after months, I was given morphine and some fluids, which made me feel a bit better. And then they wanted to send me home again. So I had to kick off and I literally said, I'm not going anywhere. Somebody needs to get to the bottom of this. I know my body and I know that something is going on and I don't believe that it is IBS. So they admitted me and eventually found the results of my scan, which showed nothing, or so they said. So then they sent me down to a radiographer to have an ultrasound kind of done, and she saw that my bowel was slightly twisted. So they said that they were going to send me in for laparoscopy. laparoscopic, I can't pronounce the word, but where they put the small camera in and have a look around. And 5.5 hours later, I came out of surgery with a third of my bowel missing, and was told that they'd found something suspicious, which I kind of guessed was cancer. And then the next day they confirmed that it was. But for me, I mean, I love the NHS and I think it's a great institution, but it is also, it comes with inherent racism, and, you know, for Black people, especially Black women as well, there's this misconception that we are really strong and we can, you know, we handle pain well, we have a higher pain threshold. So part of me thought that that was the reason why I was treated the way that I was. And again, I had an incident with a nurse at the hospital as well, which wasn't very good. Don't get me wrong, I had lovely nurses as well who were, you know, understood that this is the hardest time of my life, and were very sympathetic and the rest of it. But I think it comes with, especially as a Black woman, a lot of mistrust of the health services based on history. And also the fact that, I mean, this is a good, I'm glad you have this survey. I wish that you had the survey when I was going through my treatment, because I would have loved to have given examples of, you know, what I went through. But because for the majority of the time we're not really heard, we tend to kind of stick to our own community, and we'll do like herbal remedies or you know, find different ways instead of trusting what the white man wants to give us. Because again, through history, we have been treated really badly when it comes to these kind of things. It's not just about being scared to take the medicine, it's the fact that we know what's been done beforehand, so we're going to be skeptical about what it is they want to treat us with.
Sorry, I know you didn't, Dawn, you didn't receive treatment in a North East London hospital, but I'm just a bit curious. Did the hospital where you were treated seek feedback of any kind for?
No.
After, okay.
No, and I didn't either. Similar time to Dawn. Obviously, the national survey wasn't launched, but never had, you know, an evaluation.
If you had have had that in the months after your treatment, like obviously you're talking 10 years on now, when you've had a bit of time to kind of get your head around it a little bit, you process it, you sort of look back on what happened and what didn't happen and what, you know, what could have happened. But if you'd have been asked in the 2 or 3 months after you were diagnosed and treated, what do you think you'd have given as feedback? Would it have been good feedback? Would you have gone warts and all? Would you have gone, you know, in with everything, or would you think maybe? I'm just interested to know kind of what you think you would have said to them back then.
Yeah, I think for me it would have been, again, I think it would have been very balanced. I mean, I salute the NHS. I think they've been amazing. I had the best treatment in an NHS local hospital, but I think choice was taken away from me, if I'm honest. I wasn't given the choice of what I wanted to do next. I was told this is what's happening. And I think now, understanding the system, understanding other people's patient journey, I've realized that actually, see, as a child, as I grew up, you never challenged a teacher and you never challenged a doctor. So you never challenged their permission. It was always culturally appropriate. Whatever they said was right. So when a doctor says to you, right, you're having a lumpectomy, not a mastectomy, you're not having reconstruction, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you just think, okay, yes, because I was fearful. So I think, you know, for me, it would be very much more, my feedback would have been, can we have much more sort of involvement with the patient? I would have liked a bit more power and permission to see and understand what the side effects will be. So the chemo side effects, I'm still suffering today. So I think just having a bit more knowledge and a bit more space to make some decisions rather than go with the flow as such. I think, the NHS, remarkable what they offered me. I don't know, it's not about it's not, I don't think these surveys are about doing a bashing and faulting systems. It's about, you know what, if somebody just sat down and listened. I never saw my breast cancer nurse. I saw her on my first appointment, and after that I was dropped.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was dropped because, all right, it was a stage 3 diagnosis, but they could say, well, you're not palliative care, so it doesn't really matter. You don't need someone. But, the reason I set up the charity is because you're never alone. You always need someone at some point. Is it befriending? Is it a culturally appropriate supper club like our roti club? Is it? Sometimes you don't need a clinician, you just need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
But if you come from a community where no one talks about it, and you don't know, and even if you put it on Facebook, then you're starting to get people connect with you.
Yeah.
There were people I heard of later, much later in my journey, that said, oh, my mum had that. But, it's not a cough or a cold that you can just roll over and get back on life, because it doesn't quite work like that.
No.
So I think they would be the feedbacks, and I think my feedback also to the NHS was connecting more with the community and knowing what support is out there that I could have accessed. They didn't give me any signposting to, do you want to go along here, or do you want to try this? I didn't even know that I could get 10 sessions of alternative therapy on the NHS. It was only when I'd had a blood clot, struggled with chemo, that my alternative therapy nurse said, I can refer you to the hospice to get some additional support. So, what you don't know, you don't know. But sometimes for me, it's like, how can I make it easier for other women like me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting that you say that, Samina, because I'm guessing people have fed back that, because there's now the kind of questions that they ask in the survey. There's a question in the survey around if a patient felt they were empowered enough to make decisions, if they felt informed about the treatment options available to them, and if they, so those are the kind of questions they ask now. Some of the data that we've received in the past was around emotional support after you've been discharged from the treatment, and a lot of patients fed back in the past as well that they felt quite lonely after they've been discharged. Then, so off the back of that, and I think that's probably still a thing, because I've still heard that in recent years since I've been in post. Off of the back of that, we've within North East London, we now have the emotional wellbeing services. I think BHIUT also has one, but so this is why it's important that we collect these feedbacks to then be able to develop that support and provide the support for patients. But yeah, it's really interesting.
100%. And I think Scotland.
Dawn, sorry. Sorry, Dawn. What would you have said in your feedback?
I personally would have filled out the form. As it stands, once my treatment was finished, I started a blog and spoke about my cancer treatment that way, and kind of gave what information that I could to the masses, so to speak. But yeah, I definitely would have filled it in, and I would have been fair. Like, I was fair in my blog. I said I had both sides of the caring coin. I had the bad side and I had the good side. Thankfully, my colorectal nurse was brilliant, and she helped me with a lot of things. She pointed me towards help from Macmillan and the alternative therapies. She helped me get my blue badge. She was brilliant. And then she left, and then I had someone who wasn't so brilliant. But yeah, I think it would have been great to have had that at the time. Even like you said, I was left with neuropathy, like severe neuropathy, which is nerve damage to my feet and my hands. Hands not so much as bad as my feet. But it took an age to try and get a disability badge. At the time, they weren't recognising neuropathy as a disability. It was like I had to fight my colorectal nurse, and my oncologist wrote letters on my behalf so that I could actually get that. And yeah, it's just little things that could have made life a lot easier that that didn't happen, and I had to push and I had to fight, which is why I was inspired to write the blog. So yeah, for me, it wasn't I want to forget about it and get on. It was if somebody else is going to go through this, I want them to know what I went through, and I'm going to try and help them as much as I can.
It's so important, isn't it, for everybody to fill this survey in, because I think if you don't fill it in, you probably haven't got a leg to stand on if you then don't like what you get.
Yeah, 100%. I've always said who feels it knows it. So the most important way for you to share it is to fill out surveys like this so that people know. But also, it's you don't just want to fill out the survey and then it's just a bunch of statistics sat there. You want people to actually do the work, to make the moves and actually be heard. I think that a lot of people would fill them in if they knew that something positive was going to come from it. They just want that guarantee that it's not just going to be stacked in a pile and left there, and you know, for people to say, oh yeah, well, we've got these statistics, well, what are you going to actually do about it?
So Sarah, that comes down to you, I guess, doesn't it? Because I guess it's difficult. I mean, you tell me how the data is looked at and analyzed, and how you work out like which of the bits of feedback you're going to actually action, because I imagine there's probably loads in there that you know, maybe you don't see a pattern, or it's just a one-off, or there's things that are perfectly valid criticisms, but it might be something that is quite low down the priority list in terms of fixing. So how do you guys look at what you get back from these surveys? And there must be a million problems to tackle. How do you kind of prioritize the things that you're gonna really go after?
No, 100%. So as I said, the questions, I personally feel the question is quite lengthy as well, because if we're saying, I mean, like Samina said, if some North East London is quite a deprived population, okay. So if someone has gone back to work quite quickly, or actually some people still work whilst they're receiving treatment because they don't have the choice to actually stop working, and we've sent them 59 questions that they feel, what's the point? I'm just going to waste my time completing this. Why would you complete it? If I'm being honest, if I got 59, without the knowledge that I know now on the importance of the survey, most surveys when I get it, I'm just like, oh, what's the point? And they're just gonna. So yeah, it's one raising the profile of the benefits of completing the survey. So one of the actions that we've taken out this year is actually working with grassroots organizations. So we're working with, one, to tackle the literacy level situation. We're trying to ensure that the materials are culturally appropriate. I know the national team had a pilot as well, where they met with a group of patients from different demographics and tried to pilot the questions again to see how they can best adapt it to everyone, to make sure it's suitable for all rather than to a particular group. But the survey asks 14 sections. So there's 59 questions, but split into 14 sections. So it starts off with support from your GP practice, goes into diagnostic and testing, finding out you had cancer, how the news was broken down to you, and then support from a main contact person. So that's usually the CNS or main contact person from the hospital, how that support went. And then it goes into deciding on the best treatments, and then care planning, support from hospital staff, hospital care, your treatment, and then the immediate and long-term side effects is discussed. And then it goes into support whilst you're at home, and then it filters back to you again, care from the GP after you've been discharged, living with and beyond cancer, and then the overall NHS treatment. Now, because going through all of this, there's different aspects to it. When we get the result, when PICA gets the results, it's sent back to NHS England, and then it's sent to each ICB. And then we break it down. It's sent to the trust as well. The trust specific data is sent back to the trust. The trust will look at it and look at areas that they can, easily improve on. For example, I think in the past they've had things, as I said, they've had the emotional well-being, or even therapy, talking therapies or support groups. There was loads of people in the past have said they didn't feel there was enough support for them after they've been discharged in the community. So feedback has led, and we've created initiatives to support that. We now have a psychosocial doctor at Barts that provides that emotional well-being and social well-being. As an alliance, we then work with, so we look through the different parts. There's the GP groups, the feedback that's relating to GP groups goes back to the GP groups to see how, because again, a lot of the, actually no, the GPs are most of the time, GPs are the first point of contact for cancer patients. Most patients find out from their GP, from, you know, they're referred from via the GP. So a lot of it sits with the GP. So working with GPs, it's not just secondary care. One of the questions asked about the co-production of care between primary and secondary care. Again, looking at how we can encourage both primary and secondary care to work better to ensure that it then benefits the patient experience at the end of it. So there's so many different layers to it. And we just try to find, and there's the living well and beyond cancer aspect as well, which again, loads of patients feedback, you know, after they've been discharged, they didn't feel that there was enough support for them. So it's looking at, okay, there's, I think the quality of life survey then came out off of the back of that, looking at patients' quality of life after they've had cancer. What can we do? What do you think is, or what's the accepted substandard level of a good quality of life after you've had cancer? How can you be supported again? So there's just so many, so many elements to it. But as an alliance, we look through the feedback that we get. We go to the tumour groups, the expert reference groups, and we try to work with the trust leads. Again, we present the data to them saying, this is the results we've got back. Finding out you had cancer, I think I've had a few negative experiences, and now the news was broken to people in the past. So again, we looked at designing training or refreshing the training on how cancer is delivered to a patient, or how the news is broken down, or how it's delivered to patients. But yeah, there's loads on there, and I could go on and on. The benefit is, the initial step is ensuring that people are aware of the benefits of completing the survey, one, and knowing that actions are being taken. We're not just asking for the service to be completed. It actually informs the way that services are being designed and delivered.
So Samina and Dawn, is that the key thing for people in terms of getting people to fill the survey out then? You're seeing evidence of things that they've said actually actioned. And I guess that's difficult to see if you're not filling in the survey to get the feedback in the first place, isn't it? But, you know, hopefully even among your 10% or 11%, there are going to be things that, you know, will appear and become visible.
Yeah, definitely. I think over time you do see change. Like I said, now, you know, Sarah's just confirmed that, you know, emotional wellbeing support has been enhanced in the community, much more better provision. I think that the first step we've got to do is have opportunity to do the pre-work during their treatment. Once they finish treatment, have the confidence to make peace with their journey, and then when the survey comes out, they see this as, one, it's anonymous. Two, they can have family carers, charities like ours and other support services that the Cancer Alliance works with, to support them to just understand that this is your opportunity to have your say. It's a bit like, you know, don't lose your vote, don't lose your right to just either compliment or give back feedback, or just say how it truly was for you. Because again, often what I'm thinking and feeling when I go out in the community and talk to other women, there'll be 5 or 10 of them that will say exactly the same. My GP didn't listen to me on my first appointment. You've heard it today from Dawn. I was mistrusted. I was told to go away. And then by the time I did get presented at the hospital, things were much further on. So I think, you know, you might think, well, nobody wants to hear me. But I can honestly say, doing this work in the community, we need more of this. We need to hear more stories. We need to hear more feedback, so that we do have a healthcare system that is responsive. It's not for the health service doesn't want to support or be responsive, but they need the support from us. They need adaptation, interventions from community and charities to help them understand what is it that's stopping certain communities from engaging. Well, how can we make that easier? Is it, you know, having open days, drop-in sessions, having opportunities for people to just say, listen, if I just talk to you, will you input for me? Can you type it? Or I have dyslexia, or I'm neurodivergent, or I have special needs. But, you know, I think often people think, well, the survey's out there, that's it. There's a lot more work to be done to give encouragement and praise. And then the whole sort of you said we did, you might not see it immediately, but even, you know, if it's a small change that can make a big impact on someone's life, it's worth shouting about it on these podcasts and future ways of communication.
Sorry, can I just ask?
Yeah, go on.
Sarah,
Go for it. Yeah.
How does the survey get distributed? Like, how do these people receive it and get to know about it?
That's a really good question, Dawn. I should have said that. So it gets sent out to, so as I've said in the past, it's sent only to patients who have been treated as an inpatient or day cases in the months of April, May, and June. They'll get an invitation in the post, they'll get a text, they'll get emails. So and then the survey is available to complete in different formats. So you can have a call telephone number to complete the survey over the phone. They have a translation service for patients that are non-English speakers, so you can do that over the phone. You get the survey in the post, so you also get a paper copy to complete the survey, and then you get a text to click a link and complete it online. So you get different.
So there's different formats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, Dawn, for you then, Dawn? What would make more people fill these surveys in? Because clearly it's so important that we get feedback from as many different people as possible. So how do we get these numbers up?
For me personally, I would say to access more groups like Samina's and more local ethnic groups, just kind of go in and show them that you want to help them, as long as they know that it's going to be for their benefit, and you can, you know, show that with heart, then I think that you'll find that more people will join in. But you need to kind of meet them on their level, because the majority of these things, usually the mentality of us is like, it's not for us, it's for white people. No offense, but yeah, if you just show that you are genuinely interested in what we think and what we, you know, have to say, then I'm sure the uptake will rise. But yeah, you have to kind of meet us at a level.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Dawn. And that's why, as part of my project initiation to improve the uptake, we're collaborating with a grassroots organization called From Me to You to tackle the low uptake that we've received from patients from the African and Caribbean community. Because personally, again, I feel people will speak to like-minded people, or if someone's more relatable, you're most likely to be open and honest with
100%.
them. So and so we're hosting like focus groups and pop-up and drop-in sessions for people to come in. We're inviting as many patients as possible to come into the drop-in sessions, and rather than hosting it as an NHS organization, we're allowing a grassroots organization to host it, so that transparency is there and people can be honest. And we're doing the same with Samina's charity Sakun for South Asian patients to try and increase uptake. So yeah, I definitely agree, and that was why I thought, you know, this is a good way to look at it. Let's not be the one asking, let someone else actually ask and see if we get a better response rate from that. But yeah,
Sarah, can we just finish up by a bit of signposting? If someone's listening and they want to find out more about the survey, they think maybe they were in hospital, you know, April, May, June, they might have missed it in their email, they might not have seen it. Where can people find out more information about the survey?
There's actually a website dedicated to NCPES, and it's called www.ncpes.co.uk, and it has all the questions on there. There's a link on there to complete the survey if you've received the survey, and it's open until the 10th of January, I believe. So it's quite a short window, but we're encouraging people as much as possible. If you've been invited, please complete it. We're also doing social media campaigns as well to encourage people to complete it, the benefits of completing it. There's you should also get a reminder from the GPs as well as the trust that you've received treatment from to say, we're inviting you to complete the survey. Please participate. But yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I actually don't even know if I knew the survey existed before this conversation today. So it's really enlightening, actually. Well, enlightening to see that there is so much effort being put into getting feedback and getting patient feedback into treatment to hopefully shape what things look like going forward. But it's a bit of a challenge for you guys, isn't it, to try and get more and more and more people, because obviously these, as we said, this self-fulfilling prophecy where some communities who don't believe the services are for them aren't giving the feedback, and then they're not going to be for them, and it's going to go around in circles, and we're going to be here again in 5 or 10 years. So yeah, big challenge. But thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, Dawn and Samina, for sharing your stories, and Sarah, as always, your second time on the podcast. I've enjoyed it just as much as the first, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.